when we teach you meditation, we show an image of light to all of you. So perhaps you can share a bit about that, Brother Tran.
So thank you, everybody. When we meditate with our eyes open, what does that mean? Often the idea of meditation to really access the beauty of inner peace, I sort of close my eyes, close the door, and I create a temporary atmosphere to feel a mind at rest and a mind that's more relaxed. But I have to open that door and re-engage with life. Because when I meditate with my eyes open, I'm able to create a state of mind and carry it into my life, into each part of my life. And once I was a guinea pig of an experiment at the University of San Francisco in California. And they were researching meditation. And it's absolutely a scientific proof that meditators can relax their mind. There's 4 brain waves, beta, alpha, theta, delta. Most of the day we're in the beta mode, very fast, active thinking. When we go to sleep, we go into alpha 1, alpha 2. That's when you're feeling tired a bit. And then when we go into theta, you're like sleep state. Delta is like deep sleep. Very regenerative, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, and physically. But what we learn to do is, it's almost like you meditate in the morning and you carry the feelings of meditation into your life. You carry that state of mind. And the more we practice this, it's like I often feel that most of my life, I see something, think. I hear something, think. It's like someone criticizes me, I let it in my ears, it drives my thinking. I see something, I let it in my eyes. I'm just a puppet dancing to the external world. It's like when you begin to meditate, you're taking back the authority of your own thinking. I'm choosing the thoughts I create. And what I'm learning to do is to really reconnect with the intrinsic self. The soul is the most incredible thing. Biologists say that this body is made up of 30 trillion cells. Please don't ask me how they count them. It's a ridiculous number. There's trillions of little building blocks. The soul is more subtle than one, because the soul is non-physical, but that's who I am. I've lived before this body and after. And this is why, as I begin to reconnect with that, it releases a sense of peace. I don't have to sit in meditation and think, I must relax, I must be peaceful. All I have to do is know and experience who I am, and it automatically releases the feelings of peace. And when I'm in this soul-aware state, I can connect with the divine. Sometimes I think the Supreme Soul, God, the divine, is eternally, shall we say, soul-aware or soul-conscious. It's like the divine is on the FM wavelength. When I, the soul, forget the self, I'm body conscious, I'm on the AM wavelength. I can believe in God, I can pray to God, but actually what I'm doing here is connecting. And when I connect, I really am able to take power. And that form of light is really, as I see, one of the most common forms of light of God, the understanding of God in all traditions. So when I'm meditating, I first become aware of the self, and then I focus and I connect with that light. It's not just imagination. The mind is an incredible thing. As you're sitting here, how many people have you thought about? Relatives in America or somewhere. You're just sitting here listening to talk and someone comes in here, you know? Why? Because they've thought of you and you pick up their thought. Thoughts have an energy. Thoughts are instant. Light travels at 186,000 miles a second, but thoughts are instant. And you are actually connecting. It's not that you're just believing, you're connecting. And when you connect, it's like you can live stream the vibrations of love and power back into the self. Fundamentally, it's like I'm re-empowering myself with this connection. And when I do, my own experience is all the fear we have about loss and even death, it doesn't change overnight, but I get a new perspective on life and death, that the most inevitable event in life for all of us is we're going to die. And yet, because we have a culture where it's so uncomfortable to talk about these things, because we have so much fear of loss. But to begin to understand this is the most natural process of existence. The soul takes a form, leaves it, and moves on. And I think that the more I practice, it chips away at the habits, because fears are habits that are stored in my subconscious. There's no doubt it takes time, but to liberate myself from fear is one of the greatest acts of self-love and self-care. So, okay.
Thank you, Brother Charlie. And that leads us to a question that is asked from the audience. Let us know more about the third relationship you talked about. The first being the relationship with oneself. The second being the relationship with the divine. And what's the third relationship that we're talking about?
Thank you. I think I forgot to mention that, so please forgive me. What I really feel is that the relationship with each other. And you know, we spend a lifetime trying to have loving, meaningful, substantial, quality relationships with each other. And I feel that one of the greatest pains in the human spirit is deep conflict and deep differences. But I feel personally that until the relationship with the self is healed, that those feelings with others, sometimes okay, sometimes not okay. And that's where really, to me, we often, if you ask most people, what's the most important thing in life? It's our relationships with each other, our family. But what we're saying here spiritually is to go back and look at the first two relationships of life. You know, what is spirituality? To me, spirituality is to have a loving relationship with myself as a soul and a loving relationship with the divine. And when those two relationships are solid, I can really start to have stable relationships with others. If the relationship with the self is deeply unhealthy, it's going to definitely influence the relationship with others. And at the moment, because most of us are under the influence of a lot of ego and lack of self-respect, because that's the children, when I think I'm a temporary body, it builds ego and lack of self-respect. They are incredibly damaging in my relationships with others, because it distorts my thinking. You know, when I have lack of self-respect, which is the ego of inferiority, I sometimes feel people are looking down at me, people don't love me, people don't respect me. I create a whole scenario inside my head, but often it's not real. So what I was trying to say is that often the way to heal relationships with others is to first heal the relationship with me, have a strong connection with the divine. That's like a platform to build meaningful, loving connections with everybody. You know, with all types of personalities, because we live in a world with such a variety of personalities. And so spirituality, I feel really, when those first two relationships are solid, it flows into my relationships with others as well.
Thank you, Brother Charlie. Here's a very interesting question. And here is how it's asked. How do we bridge groups and communities that live on fear? You know, like where people do live in fear. Well, will I have food for the next day? Yeah. Will my child be able to survive this illness, etc.? And those who live on love and confidence, for whatever reason, could be wealth, could be, sense of security of all forms. Right? So the question is, how can we have a happy life for everyone and bridge that gap that's existing right now? Those who have a lot and those who do not have much.
That's a big, big question. We need all things in life. We need love, relationship, material things for a quality of life. But it seems today that even though many have material prosperity, there's spiritual poverty. And there's an emptiness in the spirit. And I really do feel that what we can offer everybody, because there's not the human resources, the material resources for everybody at the moment. I mean, that's just a huge political question that I'm not going to engage with now. But we can offer everybody a sense of who they are, which is a sense of self-respect. And to me, the way the world is today, we have confidence to do things. We have confidence to educate, run companies, speak to people. It doesn't mean I like who I am. We might have that confidence. And I think really a gift to all human spirits is to offer them the connection with the self, no matter what is my material state, because that rebuilds a sense of self-value. And that's, to me, real wealth in life, to know who I am and live in that state of self-awareness. Because when you do, you can respect others, even when they perhaps don't respect me. It's such a challenging world in which we live, and there's so many issues. And I was sharing with a few of us who were just having a chat before. It may sound simplistic, but I honestly believe when you look out there, there's so many problems. Where do you begin? It's just, where do you start? But to me, the seed of almost all of it is that there's 8 billion human souls that have a damaged relationship with themselves. It's an unhealthy, sometimes we talk down to ourselves, we criticize ourselves, we tell us we're hopeless, you're no good. And that culture is so rife in our world. On the surface, we have an image, but inside, we're something quite different. And spirituality is trying to offer us those tools to heal that part. And I feel when I have self-respect, I can respect others. When I have self-respect, I can respect society. When I have self-respect, I can respect people who are different from me, who have different opinions. When you lack self-respect, you're threatened by difference. You feel very insecure and fearful of someone who looks and sounds and has different views to me. And, I, as a young person, like probably everyone here, I was out on the streets demonstrating against injustice and all sorts of things. And, once when I was just 19 years old, I spent a little time in jail. I got arrested. Because you see so much injustice in the world. How will it change? What to do? But actually, I personally feel it won't change until we change. And when each one of us takes on the responsibility to heal the self, that's a great act for all of us to change. And what I've really loved about the Brahma Kumaris, there's a saying that says, when we change, the world will change. And of course we have to do things for society, things for the poverty, poor people, but I have to heal myself in the process as well.
Thank you, Brother Charlie. So does that mean that we can have a future without fear, even if we're poor, or even if we have a terminal illness, or even if there's war going on around us? Do you think that's possible? So, yeah. So, please.
Personally, I do, because, I don't know whether I sound a bit naive to some of you, but, I've spent 50 years of my life, I've meditated every day, and I've absolutely experienced that I am an eternal, immortal soul. I am the actor performing through the costume of the body. And the more I know the reality, I always exist. The whole sense of beginning and end, life and death your whole perception completely changes. When I start not to believe, only know and believe, but to experience who I am. That actually I can never die, I can never cease to exist. So I think we can, no matter what our circumstance in life, start to chip away and not feel a slave to my fears. Of course it's a process, it takes time. One of the women, the Brahma Kumaris, is an organization, the largest spiritual group in the world run by women. And the woman who was running it, who died in 2022, she was 104 years old, Daddy Janki. And I remember her telling us that when she was a young girl, she was so frightened, so timid. And yet she embraced this journey for like 88 years of her life, every day learning about the self-practicing, connecting to the divine. And honestly, I can say, I observed a fearless human being. She had no fear of death or any situation. And she actually wrote a book, I Know How to Live and I Know How to Die. She was an amazing person, and it was the process, of course, but through her own understanding, she conquered her own sense of vulnerability and fear.
Thank you, Brother Charlie. And this is the last question that's with me, unless there are other questions that you might want to share. But this question, Brother Charlie, really talks about energy and the impact of energy. As you were mentioning, thought is energy. The life of the soul is also energy. So here's a question of, could we consciously integrate principles of architectural design, psychology, and elevate human spirituality faster on a deeper connection for well-being? So in other words, the question is more, how do we connect spirituality with science or with arts in terms of bridging and understanding, creating positive energy, fearless energy, all of this?
I feel that the self is the seed of everything. And how I express, whether it's through relationship, through the arts, through my profession, through science, when my consciousness changes, it will influence everything. To be honest, I'm fascinated by the human mind, because some scientists say in a waking day it creates 70,000 unique thought patterns. Once again, I'm not sure how, but it's like when you meet somebody, instantly you get a feeling, instant, because that's the quality of the thinking of that person and the feeling. And the more I, in a sense, upgrade the quality of my thinking, the highest quality human thought is of the true self, the permanent self, and the divine. And the more my mind is engaged with that thought, it's like your mind is a perfume. It changes the atmosphere. I honestly feel these days that sometimes, you know, if you try to communicate and explain to people, have you ever found it gets more and more complicated? Because when you communicate with people, you communicate on 3 levels. One is your vibrations, the thoughts. The other is your face, and the third is your words. You know, words only impact maybe 10 to 15% of the impact of any communication. 80 to 90% is the non-verbal, is your face and your vibrations. They say the face is the index of the soul. As the soul changes, the face even changes, the vibrations change, the energy of your impact. We all know we meet people, you instantly feel comfortable with some, others you don't feel so much, because I feel it's not so much negative thoughts about the other, it's more negative thoughts about the self when I'm battling in that inner battle with me, trying to feel comfortable with who I am. And that's where I feel when the soul heals, when the soul gives time to self-transformation, when the soul gives time to knowing itself, that flows into life, into family, into work, into society, absolutely everything. As you know, all the arts were an expression of love for God. You know, all the artistic expression through history up until probably the last 100 or so years mainly were an expression of my love for the divine through painting, through music, through dance. It's the soul's expression of the beauty of that highest human experience in that way. And I feel that if I give time to knowing the self, it's like I upgrade the mind. My own feeling is these days that when I have this connection with God, it's like you live stream those feelings into your mind. And your mind feels very light, very calm, very sweet. And that feeling sustains you. You know, those light, pure, clean thoughts, you feel comfortable, and it sustains the people you love. When you're in an elevated state of mind, just the fragrance of your mind being loving and kind and light and easy and accepting, that energy just changes, and that can be expressed in any area of life. And really, to me, a leader is one who leads the self first. I've done the work to know who I am and start to master my thoughts and my feelings. They become a natural leader in a community. And really, when a leader is having a state of self-realization, it has a massive effect on a family and a community. Yeah.
I just had this thought as you were sharing, because there are no more questions that have been submitted. You mentioned something that in the Christian religion we relate very much with, and that is, as I sow, I reap, right? And how does that relate to overcoming fear? What do I sow or plant so that I reap being fearless in my life in a very practical way? Like when we go out of here, what do I need to start planting now so that I reap the fruit of being fearless about my future?
Yeah, I mean, if in a way, let's say I wake up in the morning, I meditate, I elevate the quality of my thinking and feeling, then all my actions are coming out of that elevated place. This is why we meditate in the morning. And so it's like if I do actions according to my truth, I feel comfortable. You know how sometimes you have your truth, but your desires pull you to do something against your truth. You may compromise, and you compromise your conscience, and your conscience feels really heavy in that way. And that's where, when I really understand that if I do actions against my own truth, I will fear the repercussions of those. It's like I'm transgressing really the values which I hold really strongly for myself. It's a very, very deep philosophy, really, because it says, you know, the soul adopts a body. Whatever actions a soul does through a body creates its fortune. I'm the master of my destiny. I create my destiny by the quality of the actions, of my actions. And that's why it always pays to do actions according to my truth. Because we all know sometimes our desires for something compromise the values I hold true. And then I regret, like I was saying about that man, that, you know, because he wanted a good education for his children, he compromised his values, but he suffered deeply of fear. So honesty is a great power to deal with fear as well, to be honest with myself, honest with others, and honest with God too.
Wow, those are very, very deep points of wisdom that we can reflect more about tonight, as you shared many points with us. And let that inner journey of being more fearless in our life begin today as we practice having more positive thoughts, planting seeds of good thoughts that return to us as blessings from others. And this is why in the Brahma Kumaris, we always make sure every program we share blessings with all of you, so that as you live those blessings, you also experience those blessings. But before we come to that part, let's first give Brother Charlie a big, big round of applause. And thank you for encouraging us to meditate. And for those of you